Have you ever, amidst life's busyness and clamor, asked yourself if you could keep your mind as still as a mountain? The pressures of work, nameless sorrows, unintentional words that hurt us, all of them are like a fierce wind whipping through our souls. Wind can bend branches, tear leaves to shreds, but the mountain stands firm, solemn, and resilient through countless seasons of sun and rain. The Buddha once taught that afflictions are wind. A peaceful mind is a mountain. This seemingly simple saying contains a treasure trove of wisdom. When we realize that afflictions are merely transient winds that come and go, unable to shake the core of peace within us, we will panic less in the face of change. Amidst the hustle and bustle of life, if each day we take a little time to slow down, breathe deeply, and listen to the voice of the mountain in our hearts, we will discover a quiet space that nothing can invade. Believe that this profound place always exists, just waiting for us to return and reclaim the peace we once thought was lost. Some mornings we wake up. The sky outside the window is still blue. Birds still sing. But within our hearts, a strange wind has risen. It could be a message that saddens us, an unintentional word someone said that leaves a lingering, unpleasant feeling, or simply a memory from yesterday that hasn't quite settled. These winds have no physical form, but are powerful enough to disturb our entire mind. We often call them by many names: anxiety, sadness, disappointment, anger. But in the Buddha's view, are they all just afflictions? Temporary clouds drifting across the sky of the mind. Afflictions are not inherently enemies. They're like currents of wind passing through our lives. Sometimes it's the gentle breeze of a fleeting criticism. Sometimes it's the strong gust of an unexpected failure. And sometimes it's a violent storm when we experience loss or betrayal. We cannot control the wind, but we can choose how we stand before it. Yet, most of the time, we let the wind carry us away. A disagreeable comment immediately turns into a day of sulking. One stumble immediately turns into days of confusion. The wind is just wind, but it is our mind that clings to the wind, embraces it, and transforms it into suffering. The Buddha once taught that suffering does not lie in circumstances, but in the mind's attachment. When we do not cling to the wind blows past and disappears. But when we hold on to it, the wind becomes an inner storm. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse: "A mind unperturbed by gain or loss, that is true peace." It sounds simple, but practicing it is far from easy. For the human mind is accustomed to reacting rather than observing. When we see a benefit or hear criticism, we immediately want to justify ourselves. When we encounter a misunderstanding, we rush to explain. When we experience loss, we sink into regret. We rarely stop to see if this particular wind is truly worth being carried away by. There is an old story that tells of a Zen master and his disciple descending a mountain to visit a temple. On their way back, they encountered a great storm. The wind howled, trees swayed, and leaves flew everywhere. The disciple trembled, trying to cover his face, stumbling as he walked. The Zen master, however, continued to walk calmly, each step steady. Once they reached safety, the disciple asked, "Master, aren't you afraid of the wind? I felt as if I would be blown away. The Zen master smiled. You are a branch, so the wind makes you sway. I am a mountain peak, so the wind merely blows past. The mountain does not stop the wind, but the mountain does not let the wind carry it away. That story serves as a mirror for us to look into ourselves. How many times in our lives do we live like a branch in the wind? A negative piece of news throws our mind into disarray. A reproach makes our heart restless. A failure makes us lose faith in ourselves. We forget that we can absolutely be the steadfast, tranquil mountain peak, allowing the wind to blow and the clouds to drift. But our mind remains unshaken. To become a mountain peak in life is not about being emotionless or indifferent. It is when we understand that all winds are impermanent. Today's criticism can become tomorrow's praise. Today's failure can open up tomorrow's opportunity. Today's misunderstanding can be resolved with a sincere smile. Today's loss will also be compensated by another form of love. No wind lasts forever. When we see this, we stop letting our minds be swept away. The Buddhist scripture Lin Ung reminds us. Once, sitting on my porch on an autumn afternoon, golden leaves covered the yard, and a gentle breeze blew, lifting a few leaves before letting them fall back to the ground. I thought, afflictions are much the same. They can lift us up if we know how to utilize them, or bring us down if we cling to them. The wind doesn't choose which leaf to carry away. The wind merely passes by. Only we decide whether to fly with it or stand still and watch it blow. In our busy lives, we easily forget that afflictions are just a very small part of the overall picture. When a gust of wind comes, try to stop. Take a deep breath and feel your breath anchoring you to the present. Let the wind blow through instead of fighting or clinging to it. This is the practice of mindfulness. Be aware that you are being touched by the wind, but do not identify yourself with the wind. You remain here, steadfast as a mountain. If today you are sad because of a word, try to sit still and look deeply into that emotion. Ask if this word will still be in your heart a year from now. If the answer is no, then why do you let it dominate your present? If today you are disappointed by a failure, remember that every mountain is formed from millions of years of enduring wind and rain. No steadfastness is achieved without undergoing movement. Imagine your mind as a deep green mountain standing amidst the sky. The wind can blow all day. The rain can pour down. The sun can scorch. But the mountain still stands there, embracing the forests, sheltering all beings. You can be like that too. Embrace yourself. Protect the peace within, so that even if afflictions come, they are merely passing winds. In each step, let peace guide you. In each breath, let your mind return to yourself. Then, the wind may come from all directions, but your heart will remain a still sky. And one day, you will realize that the wind has never made you suffer. Only the mind's attachment creates the storm. When you let go, the storm will dissipate, the wind will clear, and you will see that the sky within you is infinitely vast. Someone once asked me, if afflictions are wind, then how do we make the wind stop blowing? I just smiled. How can we make the wind stop? The wind doesn't follow our will. We can close the door so we don't see the wind, but will the wind disappear because of that? Afflictions are the same. Even if we hide in a quiet room, cut off all contact, avoid everyone, an unexpected wind can still arise within the mind from just a thought, a memory. So, the important thing is not to drive away afflictions, but to learn how to let them pass without being swept away by them. In life, these winds of the mind appear often, sometimes from very small things. A young mother, tired after working all day, comes home to cook dinner for her family. Just one word from her child, "Mom, your cooking isn't as good as yesterday's," is enough to make her heart sink. The wind doesn't blow strong, but it's enough to destabilize a peaceful evening. Or a diligent employee, just because of a reminder from the boss, remains in a gloomy mood for many days. If we observe closely, we will see that most of our afflictions do not come from major events, but from small winds we fail to recognize in time. In the Lankavatara Sutra, the Buddha taught that the mind is like empty space, unconstrained by form, sound, smell, taste, or touch. If we can keep our mind like empty space, the wind, even if it blows, will only stir it for a moment and then dissipate. But we often unwittingly turn that empty space into a field full of dry leaves, so that every time the wind comes, the leaves scatter chaotically. That disturbance is not the fault of the wind, but because we have accumulated too many dry leaves, memories, preconceptions, expectations, and attachments. I remember visiting an elderly woman in a village once. She lived alone in a small wooden house in the forest, drinking tea every day, listening to birds, and tending her small garden. I asked her, "Do you ever feel sad?" She smiled and replied, "Sadness does come, but it comes and goes like the wind. If we hold the wind in our hands, it becomes a storm. If we open the door and let it pass, only the scent of flowers remains in the garden." Her words were simple, but they blew into my heart like a cool breeze. It turns out that peace is not the absence of wind, but allowing the wind to come and go, naturally. Some also think that to keep one's mind as stable as a mountain, one must avoid all adverse circumstances, avoid contact with people who easily cause afflictions. But in reality, a mountain doesn't choose where it stands. It can be in a valley full of wind and still stand there for 1,000 years. What needs to be cultivated is not avoiding the wind, but the inner root, the root of mindfulness and wisdom. When we recognize the true nature of afflictions, they no longer have the same power over us. Praise or criticism becomes merely a sound. Failure becomes merely an experience. Misunderstanding becomes merely a lack of information. Loss becomes merely a part of life's cycle. Once, a friend of mine went through a major shock. He lost the job he loved after many years of dedication. Initially, he fell into a state of panic, anger, and endless blaming. But then, by chance, he heard the saying, "When one door closes, don't rush to bang on it. Try to turn around and see how many other doors are waiting to open behind you." That saying was like a gentle breeze that changed his mind's direction. Instead of resisting, he began to look for new opportunities, and then a more suitable job came to him. If he had clung to the wind of losing his job at that time, he probably wouldn't have found peace, even now. My friend's story reminds me of an image in Buddhist scriptures, the raft across the river. When we use a raft to cross a river and reach the other shore, we should leave the raft behind. Afflictions are similar. They may appear to remind us of something, to help us realize our limits. But once the lesson is learned, we need to let them go. Keeping the raft after crossing the river only adds to our burden. Holding on to afflictions after the event has passed only keeps the mind agitated. In a chaotic life, we cannot avoid the wind, but we can practice observing the wind. Whenever a negative emotion arises, try to stop and ask yourself, is this a gentle breeze or a strong gust? Where does this wind come from? How long will it blow? By observing in this way, we will see that the wind is not as terrifying as it seems. Sometimes, with just a few mindful breaths, the wind dissipates. Sometimes, after a few days or weeks, the wind subsides, and when the wind is calm, the sky of the mind becomes clear again. The image of the mountain peak that the Zen master in the story told his disciple is truly worth contemplating. The mountain does not try to fight the wind, but it also does not let the wind carry it away. The mountain stands there, regardless of the wind changing direction, clouds drifting by, rain or sun. This stillness is not a lifeless immobility, but an abiding in its own essence. The mountain knows it is a mountain, so it doesn't need to act like a branch. When people realize their inner peaceful nature, they will no longer need to chase after or run away from afflictions. And you see, there are people who still smile amidst the chaos, not because they have no afflictions, but because they know afflictions are wind and their minds have become mountains. They still live, still love, still face challenges, but their hearts are not swept away. That is the strength of a peaceful mind. If you are hearing these words, perhaps you too are carrying a wind within. Try to relax your shoulders, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Feel your breath like a gentle sail on a vast ocean, not fighting the wind, nor surrendering to it, but letting the wind carry you on a gentle journey. You don't need to rush anywhere. Just being present here in this moment is already you beginning to become your own mountain peak. And when you open your eyes, you will realize that the wind is still blowing, but you are no longer trembling like a branch. You still stand firm. In the sound of the wind, you can hear the birds, the leaves, and the rhythm of your own heartbeat, and you smile, understanding that all winds will pass, only the deep green mountain, which is you, serene amidst life, will remain. Some mornings, we wake up amidst the hurried pace of life and realize we've brought too much noise into our minds. It's not just the honking of cars, people arguing, or phone notifications, but also the restless whispers of our own selves. In such moments, many people want to find a faraway escape, to avoid all gossip, all turmoil. But the Buddha once reminded us that a peaceful mind is not about fleeing from life, but about being able to stand still amidst the storms, keeping one's heart from being swept away. A peaceful mind is like a mountain standing firm against the wind, knowing that the wind will pass and only stability remains. Imagine standing by a lake in autumn. When the wind is calm, the water's surface is so still that we can see the blue sky and white clouds reflected perfectly. But just one pebble dropped, small ripples spread, and the image in the water becomes distorted. Our mind is like that lake. When it is not agitated by anger, envy, or fear, it is naturally clear, reflecting the beauty of life. But an unintentional word, an unexpected event, is enough to stir the lake's surface. The Buddha taught us that to maintain that clarity, we must first learn to recognize when the water begins to move, and then gently put down the pebble in our hand. Amidst a chaotic life, the method to cultivate inner peace is not something profound. Sometimes it's just taking a deep breath, exhaling slowly, feeling each rhythm of your breath like a close friend. Each breath is an opportunity to return home, to return to yourself. When a strong emotion arises, we don't need to chase it away or force it to disappear. We just need to identify it. This is anger, this is worry, this is sadness. Once we've named it correctly, that emotion is like a child who stops crying because it's been held by its mother. And then, little by little, we let go. Letting go not because of weakness, but because we know that holding on only makes us heavier. Long ago, in a story recounted from the time the Buddha was still alive, one day, as he was teaching the Dharma, a dove being chased by a hawk flew into his lap. The dove trembled, its wings fluttering wildly. He gently sheltered it in his hands so it could feel safe. The hawk, by the law of survival, was also hungry and afraid. The Buddha looked at both, compassion spreading within him. He used his wisdom to find a way to protect the lives of both sides, and everything ended peacefully. From that story, we understand that a peaceful mind is not just about keeping oneself calm, but also a refuge for those in panic who seek it. When our heart is open and steady, we not only save ourselves, but also help others rise. We can start with the smallest things, not rushing to retaliate when insulted, not rushing to judge when hearing a story, not rushing to believe gossip that blows our way. Let your heart be like a mountain, not swayed by a few gusts of wind. Even if there's noise outside, within us, there's still a quiet space that belongs only to us. That is a place for the mind to rest, for wisdom to illuminate, for compassion to bloom. Some afternoons, the wind outside seems completely still. Trees stand motionless, clouds stop drifting. Yet within our hearts, a storm erupts, swirling and making us unable to sit still. It's true. There's no need for external events, no need for someone to do something that makes us angry. Yet the mind still falters. Those are the winds from within. Winds nurtured by memories, by things not yet released, by smoldering anger, or an unhealed wound in the heart. Often, a seemingly harmless word touches an old wound, causing pain as if it were yesterday. Or just seeing a familiar image, a memory from years ago rushes back, weighing down the heart. These are not winds from outside, but internal gusts that we ourselves stir up. In the scriptures, the Buddha once said, "Our mind is like a lake. When there is no wind, the water is clear and reflects the entire sky. But even a gentle breeze is enough to disturb the lake, distorting all reflections. External winds can be avoided by closing the door, but internal winds must be faced directly, recognized, to be stopped." Once, a disciple asked the world-honored one, "How can I stop being angry when my heart holds so many past hurts?" The Buddha smiled, without blame or hasty advice to let go, but said, "Look at anger as a cloud. It comes and it goes. It is not you. You are just the sky, and anger is a cloud drifting by." That saying was like a key opening the door to peace. For we realize that we do not identify with our pain, or our memories. They merely visit and will leave if we do not cling to them. But to realize this, we must learn to stop and observe. Observe without judgment. That is the first step of mindfulness, the path that helps us clearly see that we are not those winds. When a sad thought comes, try to breathe deeply. Exhale slowly, just to feel yourself breathing. Just to acknowledge, there is sadness here. No need to name it too much. No need to analyze why it appeared. Because the more we analyze, the more we get stuck in it. Just let it be natural, like the wind that comes and goes. Mindfulness is not just sitting still on a cushion, eyes closed, and breathing. Mindfulness can be when we wash dishes, feeling the warm water on our hands, hearing the sound of the water flowing, watching the soap bubbles dissolve. If the mind is there, with each washing motion, we are meditating. When drinking tea, instead of drinking in a hurry, pay attention to the aroma of the tea. The warmth in your hands holding the cup, the subtle taste on your tongue. When walking, feel each step touch the ground, hear the dry leaves crackle under your feet, gaze at the sunbeams piercing through the foliage. These are all moments of mindfulness that help us recognize and soothe the winds within our hearts. One afternoon, the Buddhist Dharma Lin Ung encountered a woman sitting by the river, her eyes gazing into the distance. In conversation, she shared that she had experienced many upheavals, lost loved ones, and had broken relationships. Even though much time had passed, she often still cried when an old song played or when she saw a road she had walked with someone. She asked me how to stop hurting when memories resurface. I didn't immediately offer advice, but instead told her the story of a Zen master and a yellow leaf. One day, the Zen master was walking in the forest and picked up a fallen yellow leaf. He said, "This leaf was once green, once swayed in the wind, once received the night dew, but today it is yellow and has left its branch. No sadness, no blame, no clinging. Its time has simply come." Memories are the same. They were once fresh and vibrant, but when their time has come, we need to let them go. Holding on only makes the wind in our hearts blow endlessly, without peace. The most difficult thing is not mindfulness during meditation, but mindfulness in every small daily activity, because it is in daily life that the inner winds most easily arise. While washing dishes, we suddenly recall an old argument. While folding clothes, we suddenly remember a letter we didn't get to send. If we're not careful, our minds will be swept away by these currents of wind. But if we realize it in time, we can smile, take a deep breath, exhale, and return to the task at hand. The ancients taught that the mind is the root of all suffering and peace. If we know how to care for our mind, the inner winds will weaken, and the lake within us will become still. But if we neglect it, the winds will grow strong, sweeping away all peace. Sometimes, just 1 minute of slowing down and breathing, the wind will dissipate like morning mist meeting the sun. Try today, while walking or washing dishes, instead of thinking about things not yet done or things past, let your mind be completely in the present. Listen to your footsteps. Feel the warmth of the water. Watch the wisps of steam from your tea. Then, the inner wind will lose its power to blow because it has no ground to cling to. And you will realize that peace has always been here. We just forgot it when we let ourselves be swept away by invisible winds. Peace has, in fact, never abandoned us. It is still like a majestic mountain amidst the sky. It is just that sometimes the winds from within are so strong that we cannot see it. But once we know how to stop, breathe, and return, we will see that mountain still there, waiting for us to return, steadfast and serene. Some days, in the misty afternoon rain, we sit on the porch, listening to the patter of raindrops on the tiled roof, and suddenly feel an unnameable emptiness in our hearts. This emptiness is not due to a great loss, but because amidst daily conversations, we suddenly realize we have said too much, explained too much, argued too much, yet understood each other too little. People often think that the more they talk, the more they understand. But in reality, sometimes words are like gusts of wind. The more they blow, the more they stir the lake of the soul. At times, what we need is not to find more words, but to rediscover the silence within. The Buddha once taught that when words no longer serve to understand each other, silence becomes compassion. Silence here is not an escape, not coldness, but a return to oneself, listening to one's breath, listening to what has not yet been said, and listening to the pain of the person opposite, even if they don't express it. There are people who, in anger, utter words like fire, burning down the bridge of affection. But a person who knows how to cultivate their mind will stop, not retaliate with another fire, but use the cool water of silence to soothe. Because when the mind is agitated, any word can easily become a knife that wounds. I once met an old woman in the northern mountains. She recounted that when she was young, she had a neighbor who often spoke disparaging and critical words. At that time, she was very angry and wanted to retort fiercely. But remembering her mother's advice, she just smiled and did not reply. Days turned into months, and the neighbor eventually felt ashamed and one day came to apologize. The old woman said that being silent when necessary is not to lose, but to protect one's mind from accumulating bad karma. When I heard her say that, I understood that silence can be a deeper answer than any justification. A person with a peaceful mind will embrace pain like a mother embraces a child who has just fallen. Not because they don't feel pain, but because they want that pain to be enveloped in warm arms so it doesn't turn into hatred. When a child stumbles, the mother doesn't scold or ignore it, but kneels down, lifts it up, and comforts it until the pain gradually subsides. Similarly, when someone hurts us, if our heart has matured in mindfulness, we will know how to embrace both ourselves and the other person, because we understand that they are only acting from unhealed pains within them. Compassion does not mean accepting all wrongdoing, but not letting wrongdoing turn us into bitter people. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once taught, "By hatred, hatred is never appeased. By non-hatred, hatred is appeased." That saying is not just a moral teaching, but a practical method to resolve afflictions. If we respond to anger with anger, we only add wind to the storm. But if we respond with silence, compassion, and wisdom, that storm will subside because it finds nothing to fuel it further. Some afternoons, I often sit by the river watching water hyacinths drift silently on the surface. The hyacinths don't resist the current, nor do they cling to the bank. They simply go with the water. Silence and compassion in life are similar. We don't try to force everything to go our way, nor do we let our minds get caught in the chaotic currents of others. We let harsh words and thorny glances drift away like the water hyacinths, so that our hearts remain a serene, undisturbed surface. Practicing silence as a healing gift is not easy, for we live in a world that constantly urges us to express, to debate, to speak up. But sometimes the greatest gift we can give to others is our serene presence, without words, without judgment, just listening. Listening to the wind blowing through the roof, listening to our own heartbeat, and listening to the heart of the person in front of us, even when they don't speak it. That silence is like fertile ground where good seeds can sprout. Someone asked me, "Is silence complicity with evil?" I smiled and replied, "The silence of the wise is not the silence of the fearful. The wise are silent to cultivate wisdom, to wait for the right moment to speak words that help others, that harm no one. Just as rain falls at the right season to green the trees, words also need to fall at the right time to refresh the soul. Speaking when the heart is in turmoil is like watering the soil with salt water. It only makes the plants wither more. In life, whenever you want to argue to prove you are right, try to pause for a beat, inhale, exhale, and ask yourself, do I want to win this argument? Or do I want to preserve the peace of both of us? The answer will lead you to choose silence or to speak, but from a more peaceful place. And when you do speak, speak from a compassionate heart, like a mother speaks to her child, like a gentle breeze rustles leaves, not to hurt, but enough to awaken. The Buddhist Dharma, Lin Ung, reminds us. Once, during a Dharma talk, the teacher asked the assembly, "If someone throws a burning potato at you, will you rush to catch it?" Everyone laughed and shook their heads. The teacher said, "Anger and hurtful words are like that hot potato. If you rush to catch it, you will get burned. But if you don't catch it, it will fall to the ground by itself and cool down." Silence and compassion are the ways not to catch the hot potato that others throw at us. When we develop that habit, life will have many fewer unnecessary conflicts. We will feel lighter. The sky within us will be wider, and the people around us will also breathe easier. Because silence is not only a gift we give to others, but also a gift we give to ourselves. So, if today you feel your heart heavy because someone misunderstood you or said words that hurt you, try not to react immediately. Let your heart embrace yourself first, and then embrace the other person, at least in thought. Believe that all winds will pass, and the mountain still stands firm, not losing its shape because of a single gust of wind. In the stillness of your inner self, you will realize that silence is not emptiness, but a vast sky where compassion can soar. That compassion is like sunlight filtering through the leaves after the rain, drying the lingering drops of water and warming the places that were once cold. Once you have touched such silence and compassion, you will see that all hurts can be healed, not by logic, but by love. And as night falls, amidst the chirping insects and the gentle breeze sifting through the gaps in the door, you will hear your own heartbeat more clearly. A heart that knows when to be silent, knows where to be compassionate. That heart will carry you through all storms so that you remain the mountain, standing still amidst life's winds. As I sat on my porch, watching the last golden leaf on a slender branch tremble gently in the wind, a light gust swept by, and the leaf detached from its branch, swaying, spinning in the air, then landing on the ground. I suddenly heard a sigh within my heart, as if witnessing a small, gentle parting. Since when have humans usually felt sad at departures, even if it's just a leaf? Perhaps it's because we attach a meaning of loss to it. But then, when I recalled the Buddha's teaching on impermanence, I saw that the leaf had not disappeared at all. It had merely embarked on another journey, merging with the earth to nourish new life. Human life is the same. When we are praised or criticized, cherished or abandoned, we easily forget that our true worth does not lie in the momentary perception of others. The fallen leaf does not lose the fresh green quality it once had, nor does it become less beautiful just because it now lies on the ground. Praise, criticism, gain, loss, these are simply winds blowing through our lives. If we let the wind determine our direction, we will be like a fragile leaf, carried away by any current. But if we learn to stand still like a mountain, we will see that all praise and criticism are just sounds of the wind passing over rocks, unable to shake the roots of inner peace. Some people spend their entire lives chasing praise, fearing criticism. When praised, their hearts rejoice, and their steps feel light. When criticized, their hearts become heavy, and long nights are spent sleepless. But the Buddha clearly stated that happiness cannot be placed on the lips of others. He once taught that even if the whole world slanders you, if you keep your mind free from resentment, you are like a lotus in the mud, untouched by defilement. Conversely, even if praised by a myriad of people, if the mind remains attached, it is still like grass in the wind, swaying ceaselessly. Once I met a middle-aged woman. Her whole life she lived for the approval of others. When young, she worked day and night, just to be praised by her boss. When she became a mother, she poured all her energy into her children achieving accomplishments, hoping others would praise her family. But then, time passed, praise gradually diminished, replaced by thoughtless comments or criticism. She felt like a leaf swept away by the wind, with no place to cling. I asked her, "If tomorrow no one praises you anymore, will you stop doing good deeds?" She was silent for a long time, then smiled, her eyes seeming to have just realized something profound. In truth, when we know how to look at life with different eyes, loss is no longer loss, but merely a change of form. Just as autumn makes leaves fall, not to leave the tree bare, but to make room for new sprouts in spring. When one door closes, another may be opening. We just keep looking at the empty space and haven't seen it yet. The Buddha taught that every change in life can become an opportunity for growth if we do not resist, but learn to go with the flow. When I was young, I used to be very sad when I lost a close friend. We went to different schools, gradually drifted apart, and lost touch. At that time, I thought that friendship had ended. But many years later, when we met again, I understood that the distance had helped us both grow, so that when we reconnected, we valued each other more than before. It turned out that loss was the beginning of a deeper kind of reunion. Life is inherently made of intersecting circles that separate and then rejoin in unexpected ways. The mountain never blames the wind for making the leaves fall. It understands that the wind is simply doing its part. If humans understood that, they would be less inclined to blame events that change them. Some people, after losing their job, become distraught and see it as an end. But others see it as an opportunity to start a new path where they find their true passion. The difference lies in the eyes they see with. Eyes of regret or eyes of new beginnings. I remember a Zen story about a master and his student. One day, the master asked, "If you are standing in a field and see a closed door, what will you do?" The student replied, "I will try to open it." The master shook his head. "No, that door is closed, so you realize there are countless other paths around you. In life, often we focus intently on a closed door and forget that the entire sky is still wide open above us." The Buddha's teachings are always gentle, yet profound. Look at everything with wisdom, not just emotion. When something leaves our life, it is not a loss, but an arrangement for something else to come. The wind can carry a leaf away, but that same wind brings seeds to new land. Those who understand this will no longer fear the wind, knowing that the wind is a companion of change. Life is not without praise, nor without criticism. But if we let our minds be carried away by them, we will be as weary as a leaf in a storm. When we learn to stand still and look at life with open eyes, we will see that praise and criticism are only a very small part of life, not worth determining our value. That value lies in how we live, in our compassion, wisdom, and serenity amidst all changes. And when you understand that, you will smile even when a leaf falls before your eyes, because you know nothing truly disappears. Everything is simply transforming into another form, like breath going out and coming in, like day following night. Your mind then will be light as a cloud and firm as a mountain. Humans, however, are different. When placed in a new situation, especially an undesirable one, we often react strongly. Some complain, some resent, some despair. But the Buddha taught that suffering does not come from circumstances, but from how we view those circumstances. An event that might crush one person can become a stepping stone for another to rise. The difference lies in perspective. An old story tells of two prisoners confined in the same dark room, with only a small window looking out. One looked down at a mud puddle and lamented his bad luck. The other looked up, saw a sky full of stars, and felt hope. They were in the same situation, but each lived a different life simply because they had a different outlook. In daily life, we are the same. There are times when we only focus on what we have lost, forgetting that many precious things are still present. Amidst the hurried pace of life, if we only pay attention to praise and criticism, successes and failures before our eyes, we will be like a leaf carried by the wind in any direction. But if we know how to stand still, know how to turn inward, and observe with wisdom, we will become a mountain. No matter how many times the wind changes direction, we will not be swayed. Standing still here does not mean being passive, but not letting the mind be pulled along by momentary emotions. The Buddhist Dharma Lin Ong once met an old man selling tea by the roadside. He lived simply, making tea every day and chatting with customers. Some praised his fragrant tea, some criticized its mildness. He just smiled. Every tea has its own flavor. Those who like it, drink it. Those who don't, don't. It sounds simple, but hidden within it is an entire philosophy of life. He did not let his worth be defined by momentary comments. He simply did his work well, keeping his mind light as a cloud, firm as a mountain. Once, a friend of mine was misunderstood by a colleague, leading to the loss of a promotion opportunity. Initially, he was very angry, feeling unjustly treated. But after calming down, he decided to leave the company. And that decision opened up a new, more suitable job where he could fully utilize his abilities. If that day he had only looked at everything with resentful eyes, he might have missed the opportunity to find a better path. When we change our perspective, even loss becomes a form of new beginning, like a seed that must leave the parent fruit, fall to the ground, and be buried in darkness before it can sprout. If it only focused on the moment of falling, the seed would think it was abandoned. But if it understood that it was the first step to becoming a tree, it would embrace that darkness as an essential part of the journey. Each person's life is the same. There are periods that seem to be immersed in loss, but are actually silently nurturing a new future. The mountain does not argue with the wind about its direction. It simply stands there firmly and lets the wind pass. If humans learn this, they will suffer less over things beyond their control. One cannot stop others from criticizing, nor can one force them to praise. But we can choose how to react. That is true power. A steadfast soul is a soul not carried away by the winds of praise or criticism. I remember in the Dhammapada, the Buddha once said, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so are the wise unshaken by praise or blame." That saying is not just advice, but a guiding principle for living in the world while maintaining serenity. When we begin to see all praise and criticism as passing winds, our hearts will feel much lighter. And when we have learned to look at life with different eyes, the things that once caused us suffering will no longer have the power to defeat us. We will be grateful even for the winds that once made us our way, because they helped us realize our inner strength. We will realize that a leaf carried by the wind may travel far, but a mountain standing still can observe all 4 changing seasons without fear. Looking at life with different eyes is not about seeing everything through rose-tinted glasses, but about seeing with understanding and acceptance. When we accept, we no longer resist. And when we do not resist, we find peace amidst change. That is the wisdom the Buddha taught. Wisdom helps us clearly see impermanence, understand that everything is in motion, and that we are also a part of that movement. Try once, when facing loss, to stop and ask, "What can this teach me?" That small question will open another door in your soul, leading you to insights you had never seen before. Just like when standing before a painting, if we only look from one angle, we see a limited image. But when we step back, change our position, the painting opens up to its full view. Life is the same. Sometimes, just one step back, and we can see a completely different picture. Once you understand this, you will no longer fear the falling leaf, nor the changing wind, nor be bothered by praise or criticism. You will know that every moment, whether joyful or sad, is part of a journey bringing you closer to yourself. And then you will smile like a mountain amidst the vast sky, letting the wind blow and the leaves fall, while you remain serene. One autumn afternoon, I sat by a small river in my village, where the water flowed quietly as it had for countless years. An old man with white hair sat on an old rock, his eyes following the current. I approached and greeted him, and he just smiled faintly and said, "The water flows on forever. You can't hold on to anything, my child. People are the same. If you rush, you'll miss out on your whole life." The old man's words resonated like a bell in my heart, awakening something that had long been dormant. I suddenly remembered the Buddhist teaching. In haste, people often lose mindfulness, but when they know how to stop, they can see how beautiful reality truly is. Today, we live in an incessant cycle. We wake up in the morning, rush to check the clock, eat a quick breakfast, then get swept into work, news, phone calls, endless meetings. In the afternoon, we're busy with hundreds of unfinished tasks, only to return home exhausted, with no time left to notice a flower on the balcony that bloomed who knows when. The world around us still holds countless wonders, but we miss them simply because we always live as if we're racing against time. Once, I met an old friend who used to be the busiest person I knew. He worked himself to exhaustion, always thinking he had to do a little more, try a little harder, and then he could relax. But eventually, when his health declined, he realized he had never truly lived, only existed under pressure. He said that if he had slowed down a little in the past, he might have heard the birds sing every morning, might have walked hand in hand with his mother on the village road, might have sat and eaten a meal without looking at his phone while doing so. The Buddha taught that life is inherently an impermanent river. Every passing moment will never return. We cannot bathe twice in the same river, nor can we relive a day that has passed. Water flows, leaves fall, seasons change, and people gradually age. If we don't know how to stop to breathe, to look, to feel, we will lose ourselves in the flow of time. Slow living doesn't mean stopping or missing opportunities, but walking with full awareness. Just like when eating a meal, we don't just eat to fill our stomachs, but to feel the aroma of the rice, the sweetness of the vegetables, the love of the person who cooked it. When walking, we don't just walk to reach a destination, but to listen to the rustling leaves underfoot, feel the cool breeze on our cheeks, see the sunlight piercing through the foliage. When working, we don't just work to get it done, but we work with a peaceful mind so that every task becomes a joy. A Zen master once said, "When drinking tea, just drink tea. When washing dishes, just wash dishes. When breathing, just breathe." This seems simple, but is actually a door to true peace. Because when we focus on the present, we are no longer pulled back to the past or worried about the future. We return completely to this moment, and in that moment, all afflictions suddenly lighten. The old man by the river that day continued to tell me, "Look at that river. It never stops flowing, but it's never in a hurry. It flows at its own pace, winding through rocks and grass, through turns. People should live like that too, not letting themselves be swept away in life's haste, but keeping their own rhythm so the mind doesn't lose its stillness." I sat with the old man for a long time, listening to the water, the wind, and my own heart. For the first time in many months, I felt my heart so light, Slow living is knowing how to stop amidst the rush to see a flower beginning to bloom on the porch. It's knowing how to listen to the birds singing in the morning instead of rushing to turn on the phone. It's noticing the eyes of loved ones when they quietly do something for us. It's feeling each raindrop fall on our hands instead of just seeing rain as an inconvenience. There's a Zen story that tells of a young monk asking his teacher, "Master, what should I do to find peace?" The teacher smiled, poured a cup of tea, and slowly said, "Drink this tea." The young monk was confused, but held the cup and drank. When he finished, the teacher said, "Peace is not far away. It is right there when you are drinking tea, if you drink with your whole mind." That answer is simple, but contains an entire truth. Peace is not a destination, but the way we walk. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path itself. When we slow down, each step we take is happiness. Each breath is peace. We don't wait until everything is finished to rest, but rest in every task we do. One day, when we have lived half our lives, looking back, we will see that the most memorable things are not the times we rushed to complete a task, but the moments we stopped to have a meal with our children. The moments we sat with our parents, listening to their old stories. The moments we allowed ourselves to watch a sunset without thinking of taking a picture to post online. Slow living is also a way to heal. When we no longer chase after distant things, we clearly see what is present. The wounds in our hearts need time to heal, and that time only comes when we know how to stop, embrace ourselves, and listen to our pain without ignoring it. Just as the earth needs rain to soften, the heart also needs slowness to become gentler. Some people fear that slow living will leave them behind, but the truth is, no one truly leaves anyone behind, because everyone is on their own path. Those who walk fast may reach their destination early, but those who walk slowly may see more beautiful scenery. Life is not just about the destination, but about how we traverse it. And when we live slowly, we will also easily see the changes in our loved ones. We will realize that our parents have aged, their hair growing whiter day by day. We will see how quickly our children grow and how precious each of their smiles is. We will see that our life partner quietly remains by our side, no matter how many storms come. These things, if we only live in haste, will easily be overlooked. And one day, we will regret not having taken the time to see, not having cherished. The old man by the river that day spoke his last words before standing up. "My child, when you slow down, you will find yourself richer than anyone. Rich not because you have a lot of money, but because you have many moments to remember, much love to hold, and much peace to live with." I watched his silhouette, seeing his steps, though slow, were steady, as if no wind could sway him. Slow living is a gift we can give ourselves without needing anyone's permission. Every morning when you wake up, give yourself a few minutes to breathe deeply. Be grateful that you are still alive. When you eat, eat as if it were your last meal, so you cherish every bite. When you talk to someone, look at them and truly listen, to see them living in every word. Then one day, looking back, you will smile because you didn't let life be just a race. You will be grateful that you chose to live slowly, so your mind is as peaceful as a mountain, even though afflictions still blow like wind. And then you will understand the Buddha's teaching that peace is not where you arrive, but every step you are taking. I once heard a simple yet haunting saying, "Not everyone dies of illness, but everyone dies of time." If we let time pass without truly living, even if there's no obvious loss, something within us gradually empties out. Some people spend their entire lives chasing a better future, but never enjoy the present. When they reach the end of their lives, they discover that the most precious things they ever had were the ordinary days they paid no attention to. Once, I returned to my old village where I grew up. The red dirt road had been replaced by asphalt. The tea stall at the entrance of the village had disappeared, and the old banyan tree where I used to play as a child had been cut down. I met an old neighbor, her back stooped, walking slowly. She told me that her husband didn't do much. He just liked to sit on the porch every afternoon, watching the children play and listening to the wind rustle through the tea plants. When I was young, I was always working, always worrying. Now I know the greatest pleasure is just looking at the sky, looking at the earth, seeing the people I love still healthy. She smiled kindly. Hearing her, I realized that slow living is about knowing how to savor every drop of time, not waiting until it's gone to regret it. The thing is, when we live slowly, small things become incredibly important. A cup of morning tea, a warm greeting, a grateful glance, a gentle squeeze of a hand. All these seemingly ordinary things are what warm the heart. When we live fast, we often overlook these details because our minds are filled with deadlines, plans, and worries that haven't even arrived yet. But when we live slowly, we begin to see the beauty of each moment, and that nurtures the soul. The Buddha taught that when the mind stops, the world stops. When the mind is at peace, the scenery is also at peace. This saying is not just about meditation, but also a reminder that the world we see depends on our pace of life and how we perceive it. When the mind is rushed, everything around us becomes urgent, heavy. When the mind slows, everything becomes light, soft. I remember a story about a successful man. He had everything many people dreamed of: money, fame, status. But one day, he suddenly abandoned everything to live in a small house by a lake. People asked him why, and he simply replied, "I spent half my life running. Now I want to spend the other half sitting and watching the clouds drift by." It sounds like a luxury choice, but in reality, anyone can choose a moment to sit down, to watch the clouds drift. You don't need to give up everything. Just reduce a little bit of haste. Every day, some mornings, I decide to leave home 20 minutes earlier to walk to work. I choose the lakeside path instead of the crowded street. As I walk slowly, I clearly hear my own footsteps, see the small ripples on the water, see a pair of sparrows dart past. Just that small change, and my mind felt much lighter that whole day, no longer feeling caught in a whirlwind. That's when I understood. Slow living doesn't necessarily mean changing your entire life. Just change how you move through a day. The ancients said, "Duk tok bat da." Haste makes waste. This is true not only for work, but also for living. Some things only bloom when we patiently wait. Flowers cannot be forced to bloom earlier. The sun cannot rise faster. And a heart also needs time to heal. If we keep forcing ourselves to be happy immediately, we will only add more pressure. But if we allow ourselves to take it one step at a time, we will find happiness arriving gently, naturally, like breath. In a Dharma talk, I heard a monk recount. Every morning, he spends 15 minutes looking at the trees in the temple garden, not to see how much they've grown, but just to see the trees as they are. He said, when you look at a tree without wishing it to be different, you truly see it. When you look at yourself without wishing to be different, you truly see yourself. Slow living is like that, accepting and appreciating what is, instead of just wishing for things to be faster, better, more. Someone asks me, but if I live slowly, what if I miss opportunities? I think opportunities don't just come once in a lifetime. More importantly, true opportunities are not just external, but also the opportunity to live fully within. If, while chasing a goal, we lose our health, family, and peace, is that goal still valuable? Sometimes slowing down is precisely to see clearly what we truly want. The Buddhist Dharma Lin Ung once saw a young mother taking her child to school in the morning, but she was constantly on her phone. The child wanted to tell stories about school, but the mother only vaguely responded. When I met the mother and child a few months later, I noticed the child was much quieter, their eyes dark and distant. At that moment, I wondered if every day the mother had taken a few minutes to slow down and listen to her child. Perhaps the connection would not have been so fragile. Slow living is not only a gift to oneself, but also a gift to those we love. And importantly, slow living is not about being lazy. On the contrary, slow living requires alertness, conscious choice, not giving up. A person who lives slowly knows what is important, knows what to let go of, knows how to care for their soul before the soul runs dry. I believe that if everyone gave themselves a quiet moment each day, even just 10 minutes, to do nothing, this world would be much less stressful. Because when we are peaceful, we spread peace to others. When we are not in a hurry, we have enough time to smile at a stranger, to yield the right of way, to say a kind word. Perhaps slow living is the secret to a mind as peaceful as a mountain. The mountain stands there through countless seasons of sun and rain, not chasing the wind, not fighting the wind, just standing firm and embracing everything. If we also learn to live slowly, our minds will be as stable as a mountain, so that even if afflictions blow through, they won't make us falter. And then we will realize that peace has never been far away. It is always present in every moment we are living. Once, I met a middle-aged woman sitting quietly on the porch of a temple, her eyes gazing distantly towards the bamboo forest swaying in the wind. In her hand, she held a faded string of beads, as if countless years of joy and sorrow had seeped into each bead. She said that her whole life she had searched for a safe place, a stable anchor to lessen her worries. When she was young, she thought it was a spacious home, a loving husband, and enough money not to worry about tomorrow's meals. But then, when those things came, she still felt an emptiness, a vague unease that nothing external could fill. Until one day, when she heard an old monk teach that the safest place is within oneself, she began her journey inward. We often forget that happiness is not about possessing everything, but about the ability to know contentment. The Buddha's teachings clearly state that one who knows contentment, though lying on the ground, still finds peace. One who does not know contentment, though in heaven, cannot find peace. Knowing contentment does not mean abandoning all dreams or ceasing to strive, but appreciating what we have and recognizing what is truly essential to keep in life. Amidst the clamor of the city, amidst the rushing news feeds, a hot cup of tea drunk in silence, an afternoon spent watching clouds drift by, or a warm embrace from a loved one can sometimes be priceless treasures. When we know contentment, we naturally release unnecessary burdens. Not every praise or criticism needs to be remembered. Not every opportunity needs to be seized. Not every relationship needs to be clung to. The Buddha once taught that the mind is like a river. The more rubbish it carries, the more its flow is obstructed. Only when it lets go does the water become clear. We are the same. If we cling to resentment, comparison, greed, and fear, peace cannot find refuge. When we dare to put down a part of these things, we open up a new space for light, love, and wisdom to enter. I remember the story of a young monk who once searched everywhere for spiritual treasures. After many years, he returned to his old temple, disappointed at not finding anything valuable. The old abbot smiled, pointed to the monk's chest, and said, "The treasure you have been seeking all this time has always been here, in your heart, but you have allowed too much dust to accumulate on it to recognize it." We are similar. We are busy seeking peace in a stable job, in a beautiful house, in the recognition of others, forgetting that peace is inherently a seed already within the mind. When we know how to return to care for and nurture it with gratitude, gentleness, and wisdom, we will feel safe even when surrounded by storms. Someone asked me, how can one maintain these things amidst a life full of changes? I think we don't hold on to peace like an object, but rather live with it as a part of ourselves. Every morning when you wake up, take a deep breath and silently offer gratitude that you are still alive. Whenever anger arises, try to pause for a moment to listen to your breath, to realize that anger is just a cloud passing through the sky of the mind. Every night before sleeping, remember to think of one thing that made you smile that day. These small actions, when repeated daily, will become a soft but durable armor, helping us navigate through life's many winds. A truly safe place does not depend on whether the external world is peaceful or not, but on our ability to keep our mind from being swept away. Amidst the ocean of life, the peaceful mountain is our very self. Once we have learned to let go and know contentment, when looking at drifting clouds, we don't try to hold them back. When hearing the sound of a flowing stream, we don't try to make it stop. We simply are present, understand, and smile. At that moment, happiness is no longer something to be sought, but something that naturally blooms in every moment. I once met an old man living alone in a small wooden house in the pine forest. Every morning, he brewed tea, opened the window to let the sunlight stream in, and then sat quietly, watching squirrels climb branches. He recounted that when he was young, he worked in the city, always afraid of being left behind, afraid of being inferior to friends, afraid of ending up with nothing. But the more he tried to hold on, the more he lost, eventually left with only a tired body and a mind tangled with worries. One day, he remembered a verse from a sutra. When the mind is not attached, everywhere is home. So he left everything behind to live in the mountains and gradually learned to find safety within his own mind. He said, "Now, no matter how the outside world changes, I still feel as if I am sitting in a spring garden, warm and full of life." The Buddha once taught that the body is like a lamp in the wind. Human life is short and easily extinguished. If we keep placing our safety in money, fame, or guarantees from others, it is like building a house on sand. Because when the storm comes, everything will collapse, and we will fall into panic again. But if we build the house of peace within our minds, where no storm can reach, then every external change is just like the sound of rain falling on the eaves. We hear it clearly, but it cannot make us wet. A friend of mine once went through a major crisis. In a short period, she lost her job, lost loved ones, and had to leave the house she had lived in for many years. She said at first she thought she would collapse. But then one night, while crying exhaustedly, she remembered a saying from a teacher. "When you have nothing left to lose, you will realize that you are your own refuge." That saying was like a bright lamp in the night. From that day on, instead of seeking external safety, she began to practice slow breathing, sitting quietly every morning and writing down 3 things she was grateful for each day. Gradually, she felt as if a garden was blooming within her, regardless of the rain and wind outside. We often fear loneliness, but sometimes it is precisely in moments of solitude that we most clearly see our inner steadfastness. Try once to turn off your phone, sit quietly under a tree, and listen to the rustling leaves and birdsong. You will realize that without needing reassurance from anyone, your heart still beats peacefully, your breath still goes in and out gently, and you still exist completely. Then you will understand that safety does not come from having someone by your side, but from not abandoning yourself. I remember a Zen story about a monk who was caught in a great storm while on a mountain. Trees fell, rocks rolled, lightning flashed repeatedly. While everyone panicked and sought shelter, the monk simply sat still under a tree, closed his eyes, and listened to the sound of the rain. After the storm passed, someone asked him why he wasn't afraid. He replied, "The storm outside is a matter of heaven and earth. If I let my mind get swept away, I will have to face 2 storms, one outside and one inside. I choose to let only one storm pass." That answer made me understand more deeply that the safest place is not where there is no storm, but where the storm cannot reach our mind. When we learn to turn inward to find support, we will also gradually see clearly what should be kept. Not all memories need to be carried. Not every relationship needs to be maintained. Not every word needs to be answered. What is worth keeping is gratitude, so that even if we receive only a drop of water, we feel as if we have been given an entire stream. What is worth keeping is gentleness, so that when facing someone who has hurt us, we can still smile and let go. What is worth keeping is wisdom, to distinguish what to follow and what to let go of. Some will ask, if I let go of things, will I lose important opportunities? But the truth is, when you let go of what is unnecessary, you make space to receive what is truly valuable. Like a garden, If you let weeds grow everywhere, flowers will have no room to bloom. Our mind is the same. Only when we clear away worries, envy, and anger can peace and happiness take root and grow. I want to tell another story about a man rowing a boat on a lake early in the morning. The fog was thick. He could only see the waterway ahead. Suddenly, a boat drifted from somewhere and crashed into his. He immediately became angry, ready to shout. But when he looked closely, he saw that the other boat was empty, and his anger immediately dissipated. He realized that often our unease does not come from the event itself, but from our own thoughts and reactions. And if we learn to keep our minds empty like that boat, we will no longer be swept into the waves. As you begin the journey inward, do not expect to immediately achieve absolute peace. Like tending a garden, it takes time to pull weeds, sow seeds, water, and wait for plants to grow. There will be days when you feel your mind is agitated again, when you feel afraid or uneasy. But don't despair too quickly, because each time you turn inward, you are strengthening your roots. Once the roots are deeply embedded, even if a storm comes, the tree will stand firm. The safest place is within oneself. That saying sounds simple, but to truly live by it is an entire journey. That journey needs no map, no one to lead the way, because the guide is you. And the destination is also right where you stand. You just need to stop, listen, and believe that within you, you already have everything you need for peace. And if today you feel tired, try to close your eyes, place your hands on your chest, take a deep breath, and whisper to yourself, "I am home now." That home is not far away. It needs no key to open, because it is the home of the mind, a place no one can take from you. When you realize this, all fears will gradually dissipate, and you will find yourself standing amidst a peaceful mountain, even though the world still has many winds blowing through. Some mornings, you look in the mirror and suddenly see a small scar on your cheek from some past injury. It no longer hurts, but it sometimes makes you think about what has passed. It could be an accident, a stumble, or a sad memory you once wanted to erase from your mind. But strangely, whether you want it or not, that scar remains there as a mark, reminding you that you once lived, once experienced, once got back up. In the spiritual life, it's the same. Each of us carries invisible scars. It could be a mistake, a loss, or an unintentional word that hurt someone else. We often wish to be perfect, complete, flawless, but life never operates according to such desires. The Buddha taught that no flower in this world blooms without enduring days of rain and wind. People are the same. No one grows up without ever stumbling. So instead of hating or hiding these scars, we can learn to see them as a part of ourselves, just as a mountain does not become ugly when it has cracks from rainstorms. On the contrary, those cracks become places where trees and grass grow, wild flowers bloom brightly, and birds come to build nests. Sometimes it is precisely those imperfect spaces that become places that nurture new life. When we learn to love even what is imperfect, we are also opening a large door to peace, Many people suffer because they constantly compare themselves to others. They see others as more talented, more successful, more beautiful, and they conclude that they are inferior, that they have nothing valuable. But comparison is a double-edged sword. It not only cuts off present joy, but also damages self-esteem. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha reminded us that each person has their own unique abilities, karmic connections, and karmic results. No one can walk their own path correctly if they keep looking at the path of others. Once, someone came to a Zen master and asked, "Master, I have practiced for a long time, but I feel I am not as good as my brothers. They are diligent and wise, while I am clumsy, and my mind is easily agitated. I am truly sad and ashamed." The Zen master smiled, pointed to the garden, and said, "Don't you see? Plum blossoms bloom in early spring, while lotuses wait until summer to spread their fragrance. It's not that the lotus is inferior. It just has its own season." Hearing this, the disciple fell silent. He understood that his slowness was not a failure, but simply that his flower had not yet reached its blooming season. In modern life, societal pressures and standards make us easily forget this. Social media is flooded with images of perfect people who are successful in their 20s, possess enviable physiques, and travel everywhere. Looking at that, we feel even smaller. But the truth is, every picture, every story we see is just a slice, not reflecting their entire life. Everyone has tired days, hidden corners, and hurts that they don't share. Loving even what is imperfect is a way to stop being drawn into an invisible race where the only prizes are exhaustion and the loss of oneself. Try to recall a mistake you once made. Perhaps you said something that made someone chose the wrong direction in your career. If you could go back, you might do things differently. But because life is impermanent, time only flows forward. The only thing you can do is accept it as part of the journey. Sometimes it is precisely from that mistake that you learn patience, learn to cherish those around you, and find a truly suitable path. Just as a seed must crack open to grow into a plant, we also need moments of breaking to realize how strong we are. When we embrace even what is imperfect, we will realize that we are still worthy of love, not because we are perfect, but because we are truly living. The Buddha once taught that compassion must first be directed towards oneself. If we only blame and reject our weak parts, we will never have enough compassion to give to others. Like a mother embraces her child, whether it cries or laughs, we also need to embrace ourselves in both radiant and shadowy moments. Imagine your soul as a garden in which there are vibrant flowers representing success and joy. But there are also thorny bushes, barren patches of land where we once failed or suffered. If we only tend to the flowers and neglect the dry soil, the garden will lose its balance. But if we patiently water, sow seeds, then one day, right where it seemed barren, a new kind of flower will grow. Loving even what is imperfect is precisely that process. Not rushing, not forcing, just patiently and gently. Someone asked, "If I accept my flaws, will I become complacent and no longer want to change?" The answer is no. Acceptance does not mean neglect. Acceptance means you stop fighting against yourself so that you have enough peace to clearly see how to move forward. It's like embracing a crying child. First, you must comfort them, and only then can you guide them to learn to stand up. Self-love is the first step to transforming oneself. Everyone has a season to bloom. Some bloom early, some bloom late. But every season has its own value. Don't let seeing others' flowers bloom make you forget to nurture your own seeds. Believe that with enough sun, enough rain, and enough time, you will bloom in the most beautiful way you can, not to compare, not to outperform anyone, but just to be truly yourself in the completeness of the present. Today, you are sad about what is imperfect. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and remember how many difficult days you have endured to get here. You once thought you couldn't, but you are still here, still breathing, still capable of love. That is already a miracle. Amidst so many changes out there, keeping a heart that knows how to love even the imperfect is a form of peace. A mountain is still a mountain, even if there's a landslide on its slope. The mountain still stands proudly amidst the wind and storm. And you are the same. You are still you, no matter how many scars you carry in your heart. Let your story continue with all the bright and dark colors intertwined, because it is precisely this imperfection that makes this journey truly worth living. When you love even what is imperfect, you have touched the freedom of the soul. And then afflictions will only be a passing wind, while you remain the serene, steadfast mountain within yourself. I once saw a woman sitting alone by the river, holding a small notebook. She wrote quietly, sometimes pausing, smiling ever so faintly. Then her gaze would drift into the distance. I approached, greeted her, and asked what she was writing. She looked at me, her eyes both gentle and as if carrying an ocean of memories, and said, "I'm writing to myself. Writing to the girl who was once weak, who once tried so hard to please others that she forgot who she was." Those simple words were like a cool breeze that silenced me. Because in this chaotic life, not everyone remembers that we are not born to fulfill all the expectations of others. We are here, first and foremost, to understand, to love, and to live fully as ourselves. The Buddha once taught that if our mind is not at peace, everything outside is merely an echo. Those who chase after the praise and criticism of the world will be like a kite in a strong wind, not knowing if they fly freely or are merely swept away. Some people spend their entire lives trying to become the image that others want to see, only to eventually collapse from exhaustion, realizing they have never truly lived. When we lose ourselves to please the world, we are never whole. Because human needs and desires are endless, while our energy and time are finite. The path back to oneself is therefore the path to liberation from the yoke of comparison, of constantly seeking external validation. Sitting in the Zen garden, listening to the wind passing through the bamboo rows, I suddenly remembered an old story. A Zen student asked his master, "Master, how can I be loved by everyone?" The master smiled and replied, "If you are a lotus, just keep spreading your fragrance in the pond. Some will come to admire you, others will pass by without noticing. But a lotus is still a lotus. You don't need to be a rose to please those who love roses." That answer was like a bell striking the depths of consciousness. The practice of returning to oneself is not selfishness, but learning to live in accordance with one's pure, true nature. And from there, loving and helping the world with inner wholeness. One of the simple yet profound ways to nurture this journey is to write a letter to yourself. In that letter, we can say all the things we never dared to say, embrace unhealed wounds, and remind ourselves that we have come a long way. When we write to ourselves, we no longer fear being misunderstood, no longer need to choose words to please anyone. We just need to be true to ourselves. And strangely enough, in that truth, we find peace. I once guided a friend to practice this. Initially, she wrote very few stiff words because she was unaccustomed to expressing herself to herself. But gradually, each line of writing roughened. Tears fell onto the page, and a smile also bloomed after each session of writing. That was when she began to heal. The Buddha taught that all suffering can become a path leading us to wisdom if we know how to look directly at it without running away. Writing a letter to oneself is the same. When writing, we are not just recording, but also listening to the profound voice of our soul. Each word is like a cool drop of water irrigating the parched earth of our heart. We realize that we were once very strong, overcame countless challenges, and also once knew how to love. Even though sometimes that love is forgotten amidst busyness and calculation. Writing to oneself is a small ritual, but carries the power of a spiritual practice, helping us to reflect, accept, and embrace ourselves as our dearest friend. Some people, after experiencing great breakdowns, become calmer and gentler. They no longer argue to win or lose, no longer try to explain themselves to everyone, nor do they seek pity. They just smile. That smile is not an indifferent smile, but the result of countless times rising from the ashes. When I looked at them, I understood that true peace is not never having been hurt, but knowing how to smile, even though the heart has scars. Wounds, when accepted, transform into places where light can enter. Looking back at our lives, everyone will see that they have walked dusty and windy roads, sometimes running after the city lights, believing that in that bustling place they would find recognition. But the more we run, the more tired we become, until one day we stop, sit by the roadside, listen to the rustling leaves, and realize the most important thing, the greatest recognition, comes from within ourselves. When we stop wanting someone else to validate our worth, we truly become free. That freedom is not given by anyone. We find it ourselves in every mindful breath, in every choice to live authentically. The journey back to oneself is not a journey of a single day or night. It is like climbing a high mountain, sometimes sunny and beautiful, sometimes cloudy and misty. But every step, however slow, brings us closer to the summit. Along the way, some people will understand and accompany us, and others will leave. Be grateful for both. Those who stay give us warmth. Those who leave give us space to discover ourselves. Every experience, whether joyful or sad, is a lesson. And the greatest lesson is that no one can live for us, nor can anyone bear our pain for us. Only we truly understand what we need for peace. I remember one early morning at a temple when the sunlight was still shy behind the mountain range, and the temple bell echoed long in the misty village. The abbot looked at me and said, "People are like a lake. When the wind blows, the lake surface stirs, distorting everything reflected. But when the wind is calm and the water is clear, we can see the sky and ourselves clearly." The path back to oneself is the same. When we stop letting the winds of gossip, comparison, and desire blow strongly into our minds, the lake within us will settle, and our true image will appear, undistorted by the eyes of the world. Life will always have noisy sounds, scrutinizing gazes, and hands extended both to uplift and to pull down. But once we have found ourselves, we will know how to choose which sounds to listen to, which gazes to smile back at, and which hands to hold. We no longer have to play a role, no longer fear revealing our vulnerability. Because we know vulnerability is also a part of our human nature. The Buddha once said, "To understand oneself is wisdom. To love oneself is compassion." If we have that wisdom and compassion for ourselves, it will naturally spread to others. Someone once said, "People spend half their lives searching for something outside, and only in the other half do they realize that everything was already within." Before returning to ourselves, we often measure ourselves by the eyes of others. A word of praise makes us joyful all day. A word of criticism makes our hearts feel heavy, as if weighed down by a stone. We forget that our mind is like the sky, inherently vast and encompassing, only sometimes obscured by clouds. Those clouds are the expectations of the world, the societal norms that we try to meet. But the clouds will eventually drift away, and the sky within us remains, waiting for us to return. In quiet mornings, if we are willing to sit down, close our eyes, and take a deep breath, we will hear the small but true voice of our soul. That voice is not hurried, not urgent. It only whispers, "Listen to me. I will lead you back." But amidst the clamor of life, we have neglected that call for too long. Returning to oneself, therefore, is not an action, but an entire process. Like a stream, each drop of water must patiently erode the boulders. We also need to be patient with ourselves to return to a state of purity. I once met a man who had experienced many losses. He once had a brilliant career, admired by many, but a major event took almost everything away. In the months that followed, he lived reclusively, avoiding interaction, and gradually became quiet. Then, one day, he bought an old bicycle, and every morning he cycled along country roads, breathing in the scent of fresh rice. He said those mornings were like conversing with himself, not with words, but with silence. Silence to hear his heartbeat, to hear the wind through his hair, and to hear his soul being reborn. He understood that loss is not an end, but an invitation to return to one's core self. The Buddha once likened the human mind to a house. If not cleaned every day, dust will accumulate, and one day we will no longer recognize the original shape of that house. Returning to oneself is like cleaning house. We clear away preconceptions, expectations that do not belong to us, words that once hurt us. We do not deny the past, but do not let it bind the present. When the house of the soul is clean, light will naturally stream in. Some people, upon finding themselves again, started with very small actions. A young woman I know changed her morning routine. Instead of hastily checking her phone, she spent 10 minutes sitting by the window, drinking a cup of tea and watching the clouds drift by. At first, she felt time stand still, a bit empty. But then those quiet moments gradually became where she found simple joy. She realized she didn't always need to be busy to feel valuable. Just being fully present in the moment was enough. The journey back to oneself is not always smooth. There will be days when we feel lonely, when we doubt the path we've chosen. But it is precisely in such moments that we learn precious lessons about perseverance. Just like planting a seed, we cannot demand it sprout immediately. We must patiently water and care for it, even if nothing seems to change for many days. The soul is the same. Peace does not come from an explosive moment, but from small habits accumulated daily. I remember a story in Zen. A Zen master asked his disciple, "If you want to go to the foot of the mountain, what will you do?" The disciple replied, "I will go straight there." The Zen master shook his head and said, "No, you must take one step at a time, each step touching the earth, and each step is already at the foot of the mountain. Returning to oneself is also like that. It is not a distant destination, but how we live each day, each moment, with awareness and wholeness." Another way for us to easily return to ourselves is to spend time close to nature. Forests, mountains, rivers, seas have their own way of healing us, because they demand nothing, judge nothing. They simply exist. When sitting by a stream, we can see the water flowing endlessly, unburdened by yesterday or worried about tomorrow. The water simply flows, just as a peaceful mind is simply peaceful. If we learn that impartiality from nature, we will feel much lighter. There are also times when returning to oneself means learning to forgive oneself. We are often more willing to forgive others than ourselves. We cling to mistakes, wrong decisions, and let them become burdens. But the Buddha taught that the past is gone like flowing water. It cannot be held back. If we cling to the past, we cannot move forward. Forgiving oneself is a part of self-love. It is not about abandoning responsibility, but about recognizing, learning, and then letting go. When I asked an 80-year-old woman, "What do you regret most?" she smiled and said, "I regret not living true to myself sooner. But I'm not sad because there's still time to do it." Her smile was like the late afternoon sun, warm and gentle. It reminded me that returning to oneself is never too late. No matter your age or circumstances, you can always begin. If one day you feel lost, try sitting down and writing a letter to your future self. Tell that person how you are feeling, what you are wishing for, and what kind of person you want to become. Then, after a year, open it and read it. You will see how far your journey has come. Writing such a letter is like planting a seed in the ground, which one day will bloom into an unexpected flower. Once we have found our way back, we will realize a simple truth. Happiness does not lie in how many people recognize us, but in whether we remain whole within ourselves. And from that wholeness, we will naturally radiate peaceful energy. Others can feel it, but cannot take it away. That is the most enduring happiness, because it does not depend on anyone but ourselves. The journey back to oneself can begin with a very small step. A deep breath, a journal entry, a solitary walk, a morning cup of tea. But it is precisely these small steps, when repeated, that create a grand path. And on that path, each day we will feel lighter, more serene, closer to our true self. At the end of a day, if you can smile and say, "Today I lived true to myself," then no matter how noisy the outside world, you have still won, not against others, but against the lostness in your own mind. And perhaps that is the deepest meaning of returning to oneself. One autumn morning, as the sunlight just began to filter through the window, I found myself sitting before a hot cup of tea. The aroma of the tea rose gently like early morning mist, dissolving into the warm yet fragile air. Normally, I would sip my tea while scrolling through my phone, reading news and letting my mind drift to unfinished plans. But that day, for some reason, I just sat still, placing both hands around the teacup, inhaling deeply, and feeling the taste of the tea permeate every sense. Just a few minutes. But I realized it had been a very long time since I had truly drunk tea in its truest sense. People often say that slowing down is a choice. But sometimes, amidst the hurried pace of life, what we need is not just to slow down, but to fully stop in the moment we are living. The Buddha once taught that when drinking tea, just drink tea. When walking, just walk. When sitting, just sit. This sounds simple, but is an art of living that few truly master. For our minds often drift to the past or worry about the future, thus missing the only moment that truly exists, the present. I remember the story of a Zen master and his disciple. One day, the Zen master invited his disciple to drink tea. He poured tea into the cup, but when the cup was full, he continued to pour, causing the tea to overflow. The disciple, surprised, asked, "Master, why don't you stop?" The Zen master smiled. "Your mind is also like this teacup, already full of thoughts, worries, and preconceptions. How can you receive the flavor of this moment?" That story made me understand that to truly live fully, sometimes we need to let go of the things that are filling our minds. Living fully in the present does not mean forgetting the past or ignoring the future. The past is a lesson. The future is a dream. But the present is the foundation for both to become complete. When washing dishes, instead of rushing to finish, we can feel the warm water running over our hands, hear the gentle clinking of dishes, and watch the soap bubbles drift away like past sorrows. When sweeping the house, we can feel each motion of the broom, each speck of dust rising and disappearing, as if cleaning our own soul. When watering plants, we watch the drops of water soak into the earth, the green leaves trembling as they receive it, and realize it is a miracle, for life is responding to love. The Buddha once taught that a day that passes without us living it fully, without practicing mindfulness, is a lost day. Mindfulness is not just for meditation, but can be present in the most ordinary tasks. Because when the mind is anchored in each breath, each action, everything becomes sacred, no matter how small. In truth, peace is not in a distant place, but is a gift we give ourselves when we know how to stop and live with what is happening. Once I visited a small temple on a mountain. One morning there, I saw a young nun sweeping the temple courtyard. The wind blew through her shaven head, her brown robes swaying gently, each sweep of the broom steady, and rhythmic. The nun's eyes remained bright and serene. I asked, "Sister, what do you think about when you sweep the courtyard like this?" The nun smiled and replied, "I don't think anything. I'm just sweeping. When I sweep, I also sweep away the dust in my own heart." I was silent for a long time after that answer, realizing that I usually did everything to complete it, while the nun did it to live with it. If we pay attention, we will see that most of our suffering does not come from work or circumstances, but from not being in the present. When doing one thing, we think about another. When with loved ones, our minds are busy worrying. We live as if not living, always chasing after a later moment that never arrives. That's why, even with material abundance, many people still feel empty. Living fully in the present not only helps us suffer less, but also nurtures happiness. A simple meal can become a gift if we truly savor each bite. An afternoon spent sitting under a tree can become a treasure if we know how to watch the leaves fall and listen to the birds sing. Even seemingly tiresome tasks, like washing dishes or cleaning a room, can be opportunities for us to practice meditation if we do them with full presence. I remember someone once said that happiness is not a destination, but a journey. That journey is paved with conscious steps. When we live fully in the present, each step is steady, each breath is pure. Even if life has storms, our mind remains a still mountain. Just like the image the Buddha often used, a still mind amidst 1,000 winds. Perhaps you are going through a period of many changes, worries, and hurts. But my friend, try to sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and exhale slowly. Let your mind return to that very breath. No past, no future, only you, and this moment. You will realize that peace has never left you. It's just that, for a long time, you have been busily searching elsewhere. And then one day, when you drink tea, you will truly just drink tea, allowing its aroma and warmth to touch every corner of your soul. When you walk, you will truly just walk, allowing the earth beneath your feet to support you and the blue sky above to expand within your sight. When you smile, you will truly just smile, allowing joy to spread for no particular reason. That is the gift of life. A gift you can give yourself every day, no matter where you are. Peace is not a luxury, but the right of everyone to live truly in the present. And when you learn to live like that, the winds of affliction will only pass through, and your mind will be as steadfast as a mountain, serene amidst all changes. This moment, right as you read these words, is also a miracle. Stay with it fully, so that your heart can be healed and nourished by the stillness within. In this life, afflictions never disappear. They are like winds, sometimes gently passing, sometimes raging like a storm. There are days when the wind carries the scent of wildflowers, making our hearts feel light. But there are also days when the wind carries dust, making our eyes sting and our hearts ache. We cannot tell the wind to stop, nor can we ask life to cease its challenges. But amidst all these things, there is still a place for us to take refuge. The mountain within our own hearts. The Buddha once taught that the wise do not seek peace outside, because that place is always changing. True peace only comes when we are steadfast within. The mountain does not promise to clear away all the mist, but it stands there silently, unyielding to any wind. The mind is the same. It doesn't need to be free of afflictions to be called peaceful. Even when the wind still blows, if our mind is firm, we are still the mountain. Many people seek peace by rearranging everything outside, but soon after, a small matter is enough to turn everything upside down. Peace is not about eliminating all noise, but about learning to listen to that noise as if listening to a distant song. Amidst a bustling city, one can still find a moment of stillness. Amidst demands and criticisms, one can still maintain a gentle space within one's heart. There is a Zen story I really like. A Zen master asked his disciple, "If someone curses you, what will you do?" The disciple replied, "I will be silent and leave." The Zen master asked again, "If that person continues to follow and curse you?" The disciple replied, "I will patiently endure." The Zen master smiled. "If you are already a mountain, the sound of the wind will not make you sway. But if you are still a leaf, even a gentle breeze will make you fly." That saying made me understand that the problem is not the wind, but what we are. I know there are people who, amidst the storms of life, still smile very gently. Not because they have never been hurt, but because they have learned to embrace their pain, like embracing a crying child. They don't run away, don't chase it away, but gently let it settle in their arms until it gradually subsides. That is the strength of the mountain. And you? You don't need to be perfect to deserve that peace. Many people think that when they have corrected all their flaws, when they no longer get angry or sad, only then do they deserve a peaceful mind. But the truth is, peace is not a reward for those who have reached a faultless state. Peace is the natural right of every person, even when you are still clumsy, still afraid, and sometimes stumble. Like a wild flower by the roadside, it doesn't need to be perfect to be shone upon by the sun. A friend once told me that whenever he felt weak, he would imagine himself as a mountain, not to force himself to be strong, but to remind himself that mountains also have rainy days, days of landslides, but they still stand there. We cannot control the wind, but we can learn how to stand firm. Looking back at the past months, you will see that there were things that once hurt you so much that you thought you couldn't get back up. Yet somehow you kept going. That was not by chance. It's because there has always been a mountain within you. Whether you realize it or not, it's still there, waiting for you to return. The final image I want to leave in your mind is a gentle afternoon breeze. A butterfly rests quietly on a flower. The petal trembles slightly, but the butterfly does not fly away. Peace is sometimes as simple as that. No need to search far away. No need to wait for everything to be perfect. You just need to know that you are the mountain. Then the wind is just wind, and peace will remain. So, if today you are tired, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and tell yourself, "I am the mountain. Let the wind blow, but do not let it carry my mind away." Then one day you will realize that peace has never left you. You just forgot the way back.